stretch for objective language. However, on that point, if you can come up with an accurate, objective description of what my city is, as far as character goes, good luck. I've watched it change since the 60s. I don't know if you're going to pick a decade or how you're going to do it. I live in a neighborhood that was built in the 50s and it's still predominantly single-story stucco, but there are some 2 stories added on. Anyways, good luck on that one, guys, because I couldn't do it. Let's see here. When it comes to compatibility, after the 2003 design guidelines were adopted, it wasn't too much longer that somebody was allowed to build a container home that I was inside of, outside of, and saw the whole thing. Hardly compatible with the neighborhood, but it was approved under the residential guidelines at the time. So I think we have to be careful about that kind of thing. Are we going to stifle creative architecture? Is everything going to look like Palos Verdes Estates? If that's what we want, then that's what we'll get. I don't know. Another point I'd like to bring out, mezzanines. There's a big difference between a story and a floor. The building code doesn't care about floors, it cares about stories, and it's all about life safety. Once you get above 2 stories, you're required 2 exits to the public way. As far as having another floor on the interior of a building, if it doesn't affect the way the building looks on the outside, it shouldn't make any difference to anybody. I've handled the same complaints. I know what you're talking about, but that's just life. You have to explain to them, no, that's not a story. That is a floor, and it is allowed, as long as it's not changing the exterior. We don't allow 3-story structures in Redondo Beach in residential areas for the most part. Never haven't for a long time. I would ask you to be extremely careful, as other people have mentioned, when you talk about removing bulk, removing this. Let's face it, we're talking about getting rid of square footage. Getting rid of square footage costs. It costs somebody. It's either going to cost, it's going to cost the homeowner when they go to sell their property, because who can ever build on it has to build something smaller, so they can't offer as much money for it. That's just a fact of life. Smaller.
John, that was 3 minutes.
Oh boy, that was quick. All right, thanks. Thanks, Lena. Good seeing you guys.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Armstrong.
And next is Mike Crasium. Mike, go ahead.
Hey, good evening. My name is Mike. I'm a resident in North Redondo over here. Bought my second home, so I've purchased 2 homes over here. Love Redondo Beach. I won't have much to say because all the speakers before me basically summed up all my points that I have. Mr. George and Mr. Armstrong basically got everything. I totally agree with with both of them. I mean, there's a lot of points to be made, but the basic one of them is the notification, even about this meeting. I heard it, through word of mouth. There was nothing. I just feel as a resident in this city, there's nothing. I feel like we should have all received a letter and be notified when there's big decisions like this that are going to be impact the whole community, impact everyone. It almost seems like it's being done without everyone's a vote, I guess. And in that case, one of my big concerns is the price of the property. Value of the property coming down. Not allowing more square footage, and that's pretty much everyone before me had said what I wanted to say. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. And I believe we have just one more, Perry Shinazi. Perry, you can go ahead. Perry, did you want to speak?
Perry? Hi, can you hear me?
Hello?
Yes.
Sorry. I am Perry Shanasi. I have been living in this community for over 25 years, and I have a condominium here. And I believe that we already heard all these objections, which I am one of those objectors. And I believe this new criteria that they are talking about is going to reduce the property value in this community. And I believe we should object about this. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and then let me just go back to Ali Arari that I had called on earlier. Ali, did you still want to speak? Okay. All right, and then we do have just one e-comment that was written in, so I'll go ahead and read that. And I believe that'll include, we'll conclude the public comment for this item. So the comment is from Mark Nelson. I am opposed to these sorts of non-bid directed awards going to firms outside of the city of Redondo Beach. There is no language in the contract or package indicating any competitive solicitation occurred. These contracts are funded by local taxes and should be let locally. So that concludes the comments, Chair.
Thank you. That's probably the most public comment we've had in quite a long time. Planning Commission, a lot of good comments there, a lot of things to consider for the commissioners. I think it's a hard balance that, the design community wants to maximize their dollars and their profit, and those of us who live here want to maximize quality of life. So that's for us as a commission to balance, and then ultimately it's for the city council to decide what to adopt and what voice to listen to. So, okay. Yep.
May I make a motion to allow Mr. George 3 more minutes?
Sure. There's a motion to give 3 more minutes to Mr. George. Is there a second on that motion?
I second it.
Okay. There's a motion and a second to allow Mr. George 3 more minutes. Should he choose to take them? Probably will. I'll take. Can I get a roll call vote?
Yeah, yes, let's do a roll call vote. Commissioner Boswell?
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Hazelton? Frozen? Oh.
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Godek?
Yes.
Commissioner Gaddis?
Yes.
Commissioner Barrett?
Yes.
Commissioner Lamb?
Yes.
And Chair Hensley?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, Manny, if you have 3 more minutes, if you want to go ahead and make the rest.
Yeah, hi, Lena. Yeah. All right. Now, yeah. Can you hear me now, I suppose?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. There's a lot of topics here. And like I said, we've all been through this long enough to know that this is just like the beginning of a conversation and dialogue that the community is going to be having with the Planning Commission. It really a lot, the way I see it, if anything is going to be accomplished tonight. So we're just throwing out topics and John Armstrong made a great topic about the height. The building height is 30 feet. And my job is to take the puzzle pieces that the Planning Commission and the Planning Department give me to build this beautiful and most desirable building that I can, that everybody enjoys and likes in the community. Okay. So like I said, I'm not against changing the Redondo Beach design guidelines. They've been real ambiguous and caused myself, as far as the staff, also just lots and lots of problems because of the verbiage and the way things are termed. So I just want to reach out and say that, the mezzanines, really, there's conversation here that's not relevant to what the point is. The point is the massing. And pardon me if I just speak openly, I get the really extreme idea and feeling that what's generating all this open usable space is really not the need for a better quality of life in these decks. If you really reach out and talk to people don't use them. If they can make the choice between having the balcony, a larger balcony, or cutting the balcony that they have in half and putting an office in it, they're going to choose the office because they need the space. They don't need the open usable space. They need an office. It's a new frontier. People aren't working at offices anymore. They need home space. It's new. And unfortunately, I wouldn't want to be in your shoes either because of decisions you have to make coming up. Okay. And then if it's not about the usable space, it's got to be about the mass and the height. If you don't like, as a planning commission, as a community, which should be reached out to, don't like the mass of the buildings or the height, then attack that. Not, trying to go around the outside with an outside line drive with getting, smaller massing with these larger balconies. That really the way I see it and understand when I talk to the community, people, when they don't like. Okay. So there's lots of topics here that we could just talk for a long time. So, but I would love to reach out to all of you individually or as a forum. And I think really the thing to do here is to take some time and address this by reaching out to the community, and whatever the community decides is great. I'm all for it. So luckily this doesn't affect me personally, but I'd feel really hard set to vote on something and then have to tell, some of the locals that live here, the residents of Redondo Beach, hey, I just in good faith evaluated your property between 300 and 400, because honestly, those are the numbers. That's what today's current prices. That's what's happening. Okay.
Thanks, Manny.
Chair Hensley, may I make a motion to allow, and I know other commissioners are waiting, but Mr. John Armstrong, another 3 minutes if he'd like it, as a 60-year resident of Redondo Beach, 32-year senior inspector, to speak.
You know what? I believe he left the meeting already. I don't see him here any longer.
Okay.
But if you're watching and you want to rejoin us, log back in. Keep an eye out.
Yep. Mr. Armstrong, you're welcome to come back and speak for another 3 minutes if you would like. And again, any commissioner at any time, once I make through it, everybody, and everyone gets to speak their 3 minutes, if we want to go back and hear from more speakers, and we're open to, we can ask them questions if we want. The whole part of this public process of having that discussion and having that feedback. So I welcome commissioners if they have any specific questions for any of the people who've joined us in the meeting today. So, okay. That's all the public comment. Is that correct, Lena? Okay.
Yes, it is.
All right. Thank you. Okay. We have some commissioners with their hands up. And before I get to Commissioner Hazeltine, I'll just add a few of my comments from what I've heard so far. I agree in the avenues about the garage. I think currently east of PCH, as Brandy mentioned, we had some conflict about highly discouraged front-facing garages or something. But that should be shall not have front-facing garages. But I would be open to something like, if there's extenuating circumstances, I think it should come to the Planning Commission for those lots that are irregular or something, then let the Planning Commission decide. As far as the FAR bonus, so currently FAR only exists in the R1 neighborhoods, and it's 0.65, I think, and then up to like 0.8 with all the bonuses. I would say that there are some of those bonuses that are desirable features to R1 houses. So I would just change it to say these are shall items. You shall do these things if that's what we want, and not give a bonus. This is the size you can make it, and this is what you have to do. Because when they max out the FAR on the R1s, it gets to be quite large. Last thing that I heard is on the neighborhoods. I would like, and I think City Council has directed us to the R1A, make that a neighborhood, because I have a whole lot of comments on the R1A neighborhood. That's where I live. So anyway, those are my comments from what I heard so far. And I'll now take other commissioner comments. And again, staff and PlaceWorks is looking for specific comments of what we would like to see. And again, if there's any objections to something a commissioner says, or difference of opinion or discussion, let's go ahead and have that. So Commissioner Hazeltine.
Yes, hi. Commissioner Lamb, were you before me? Did you want to go ahead? I think you may have had your hand up first.
No, Commissioner Hazeltine, you were first.
Okay. Okay, let's see. Commissioner Brevard, or I'm so messing up your name, Scott. What do you see as unintended consequences? That was a little confusing to me. So if you could answer that, I'm, negative or unintended consequences.
Oh, sure. Sure, Commissioner Hazeltine. The idea would be whatever is ultimately in the revised residential design guidelines, how do we be careful to ensure that what we intend by those, we as a community, we as commissioners, what we intend is what we get, and that we don't have unintended results. And I think that's why it's so helpful for us tonight to be speaking, to have such a great city staff, and have, as expressed tonight in the open line comment, such a vibrant and engaged community of designers who could help us work through those issues to ensure that what we are intending is what we are getting, and we don't have any negative, to the extent we can prevent it, consequences of what we're doing.
Do you have any examples of that? I'm just not, where's your head going with that? What are you thinking when you say that?
Well, there's a lot of things that unfortunately, I haven't seen a draft, and we don't know much about where we are right now on the revised residential design guidelines. And it's going to be a process, I hope. Yeah. And so, if we mandate objectively, shall do this, shall do that, and we don't have that list or notes of what's in mind, it's kind of like squeezing a balloon. If you squeeze it, what's going to pop out in the other finger? Are we going to have, now look at all of these homes, they're not as what we wanted, or they're too large, they're too small. We've decreased the size of homes, and now that's opened us up to more ADUs, accessory dwelling units. So instead of just having one family on a lot, now we're going to have two or more. So things like that. And my purpose, Commissioner Hazeltine, was to start the discussion and continue thinking about, what do we want to avoid? How do we not back ourselves into a situation where we may have, as I said, these unintended consequences? So thank you for asking me about that.
Okay. Let's see. I wanted to say that I'm really glad that the firm has some experience with the city of Santa Monica, because when I talk about the capturing of water, the green roofs or the permeable landscaping, and not just landscaping, but driveways and, using certain bricks, it's already been done. And, looking into this, the feds have it online. The state of California has it online. The Southern California has it online. There's report after report after report. The city of Santa Monica has their standards, and yet we don't. Ours are like, okay, if you're building something, make sure you put some sandbags so that the water doesn't. That's really, we're way past that now. We're talking about needing to refurbish our water table and keep all the pollution out of the ocean. There's all of these things that have to happen in order for that to take place. And as far as the city, yesterday in the city council meeting, we were talking about, or rather they were talking about the repaving of streets and things like that. Well, actually, I think Commissioner Scott mentioned that, water going down the street. Well, in a lot of these cities, they're already mediating for that. I mean, they are catching that water and putting it into a planter. So we need to really we're 20 years behind, because when we did these guidelines, we weren't thinking that way, but now we are. When you plant a tree, it captures carbon, so that the air is now cleaner, the temperatures are lower, all of these things are so important. And I really want to see all of those guidelines placed in this particular report. And I think that's about it. And also, I do want to say that this is the place to talk about this. Because of the Brown Act, we really can't have a good conversation. So I really would hope everybody would have some ideas that we can share right now. Otherwise, we're going to be on this for a really long time. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Hazeltine. Yeah, this is our public venue to discuss this. This is the first time in the commission we've seen this material, first time residential design guidelines have come before us, and this is our chance, really our only chance before we can see drafts. So please have specific feedback, specific requests, so that they can take it down. Okay, who is next? Commissioner Boswell or Commissioner Lamb? I think Commissioner Boswell.
Lamb is next.
Okay.
Well, thank you, Commissioner Boswell. So this will be very short. My understanding of tonight, the purpose of tonight's meeting is to give you feedback, Lisa, and give you and your team feedback. And one of the questions that you had was about the culture and the culture of Redondo. And Sean, planning manager, Sean, referenced the GPAC, the General Plan Advisory Council, and how we went through that. So we went through an extensive process of trying to identify the culture of Redondo Beach. I would like to point out to you a meeting that I believe that you can have access to that was held last night. It's called the Harbor Amenities Plan. And I attended the meeting, and what I was quite surprised at was how well you could tell from that meeting that was attended by approximately 90 individuals, residents, mostly residents of Redondo Beach. And I want to point you to that meeting to help you gain some information about how the residents are feeling about that development as reflective of the community character. I think it will help to inform you. They did some very creative online survey in real time, and will give you some robust information about their feelings about their community. Also, one of the challenges for Redondo Beach as a whole is a cohesive sense. As you've seen the boundaries, right? There's a north and there's a south. And there's really no sort of community center. So one of the values I see of the work that you're doing and in the design guidelines is to help support that cohesiveness in this idea of a general theme of what is Redondo. And I think in line with that could be a focus on these areas, whether it's the TRW track, the Golden Hills, Barrel Heights. I think focusing on those areas, highlighting those areas in a way can help bring a sort of general cohesiveness that and sense of belongingness. And I think that would be a benefit to the residents. And I would include signage for some of these areas as a consideration. Highlighting the neighborhoods. So I believe for now, that's going to be it. But I may come back. Thank you so much for the work that you're doing for the residents of Redondo.
Thank you, Commissioner Lamb. One question I have for Ms. Padilla. If I may, the outreach meeting they have planned in January, will it be like the Harbor Amenities Plan where the public feedback will be like kind of live at the meeting? I did also attend that Harbor Amenities Plan meeting. maybe staff, do you know, like?
I don't know that we're going to have the same structure because we have so much information, background information that we need to prepare people and educate them on what the residential design guidelines are now.
Okay.
Versus, most people who were participating in last night's meeting know what the harbor, is like. So I don't think there was anybody who responded, never been. So, and it was definitely an interesting exercise and very engaging. But I don't know that it required the same amount of educational background on what it was.
Okay, I think the one thing is I'm not sure residents can get up to speed in one meeting on everything that is bulk, mass, height, design guidelines. It may be even better to just show them pictures and ask for their feedback, basically. You know what I mean? Like, this is what it used to be. This is what it is. This is what is in the middle. This is what we want feedback on, front-facing garages or whatever. And I'm sure they'll give you their feedback, but just something to consider that I don't know that we can get them up to speed enough in one meeting to get their good feedback. So just maybe another tact of making it visual for them. So. Okay, that was my question. Commissioner Boswell, thank you very much for your patience. The floor is yours.
Patience is my middle name. Not. So in watching and observing and scribbling notes and everything through this whole process, I have some comments and some questions. And the first is a question on continuity, which I think everybody would like to see continuity within the unique neighborhoods, within the unique communities that make up the city. But how do you bring continuity to streets that currently have no continuity? And if you are wondering where that might be, it's virtually the entire area we call District 4. It's the word hodgepodge seems to fit what's been done there. There is virtually every type of structure, building structure, known to man in that one district. There's almost no situation where there are 2 or 3 homes next to each other that have continuity among themselves in just that quarter of a block stretch. So how is it that you bring continuity? Is it a matter of we just bite the bullet on the stuff that already is, because we can't just tear it down? And then when we try to create continuity in a place like District 4, what would the continuity be? Is it going to be all going back to single family homes? Is it going to be making sure that everything that's built there is a 4 on a lot, or everything that's built there is an apartment building? How do we accomplish that goal in places like that? Maybe somebody on staff has some insight into that, or perhaps our consultants have some experience with bringing communities like District 4 into some sort of continuity, design continuity. How would we do this?
Well, I would ask the question, is the consensus and beyond maybe the commission and including the input we get in January, is that what's desired, or will we be hearing a consensus that continuity isn't important and whatever we want to call it, eclectic, hodgepodge, variety, diversity, a lot of adjectives could be used, that should be encouraged. I think that's what we're trying to get to the heart of. And then we have to try and figure out a way how to craft the objective standards to encourage it. Whatever is written will take time to even start to be apparent, except for project by project, right? The evolution of neighborhoods takes decades in a way. The change for those that have been in Redondo Beach for decades have seen, it's been slow, but have seen it. It picks up when there's big development pushes.
So what you're saying is, I'm not sure what you're saying because you're not really addressing the issue. The issue is, okay, we're going to want continuity in general in the entire city based on what's already in a particular neighborhood. If a developer were to come to my street and tear down and scrape a lot and want to build something else, it would be very clear what it would take for that new home to have continuity with this street. Because matter of fact, all the homes on my street are still the original homes that were built here in 1954 and 55. And though some have had add-ons and additions, some of them are still the original 960 square foot size. But if you go to any street in District 4 and you were to pick a house on that street and say, okay, all new construction is going to have continuity with this example home or this example condo or this example apartment building. How do we determine which of those already existing structures is the one that we create continuity around? How do we do that? That's really what the question is.
Yeah, I think, Commissioner, that's a really good point because the guidelines that we have now only have two areas that are specified neighborhoods, the avenues and Borough Heights. And, I mentioned earlier the application, the appeal that came before the Planning Commission about that front-facing garage and how we had done the research in that entire vicinity of, and it had so few front-facing garages. And what was interesting about it was that those that had been built right before the residential design guidelines happened. Now, there's another application we had, and this really triggered us doing the interpretation was it was in that District 4, and it was there were so many more that had already turned over into, and it's because it wasn't specific to that neighborhood. I think in general, it doesn't mean that you don't have guidelines of where you want to still limit perhaps. Or focus how you want to have mezzanines, define mezzanines, so that it's not something that's just changing every 3 years. Maybe that how the garage placement is noted now doesn't land anywhere in the community anymore. Maybe side-facing garage doesn't work, but what would be some of the what do you want to see community-wide? Obviously, R1A is going to have something very different than R1 when it comes to some of their design.
Yeah, of course.
Right. So I think it'll be in those areas that maybe don't have that neighborhood definition to them where it can be pulling some very specifics like you're talking about. This doesn't mean that there aren't any guidelines. It just may be that they're a little bit broader. And it still didn't mean that somebody can just go in and do a front-facing garage in the current ones that we have. It was, if you're going to do it, we want to see, some eyes on the street, the rest of the, so the entrance isn't set way back. There are different things that we incorporated, but it wasn't specific to that designated neighborhood.
So you would say in a place like District 4, you may not want to say this particular house on this particular street is what we strive to have continuity with. It's perhaps 3 or 4 different types of structures that we want to encourage, and perhaps there are a few kinds like larger apartment buildings or something else that we want to discourage.
Yeah, and it may not be like it's this type so much as it's this issue. It's the cantilever, or it's the mezzanine, or it's where that driveway access is. So it's going to be those components that end up driving what ends up keeping that what you're looking for community wide.
Or it's that big boxy looking apartment building. Yeah, you can still put in an apartment building, but stop making a box to maximize interior rentable space.
Right.
You've got to make something that has cantilevers and gargoyles. So
some kind of fenestrations, you know, a certain amount of breaking up the facade. I mean, there are a lot of different things that can be incorporated into, you know, that multifamily requirement.
okay. So another subject that's coming up periodically is mezzanines. When I was going through the documents that we've been sent, and I'm looking at these drawings of mezzanines, I can't figure out what you're trying to illustrate because I think I know what a mezzanine is, you know, and I wasn't seeing it. And then you've comments have been made about, you know, we have this definition of a mezzanine that changes every 3 years. Well, how is that even possible? A mezzanine is a mezzanine. I mean, we should lock in the definition of mezzanine as the classic definition of a mezzanine and stop giving people wiggle room to be able to say their second floor between the first and the third is actually mezzanine when it's not. That actually doesn't seem like such a big problem to solve. Is okay from now on, if you're going to have 3 levels in your home, one of them has to be a mezzanine, and it better be a real mezzanine, or you're not approved. End of story. Is that not as cut and dried as I'm assuming that it is?
It's the definition of mezzanine that we need to clarify.
But
We believe it is that cut and
it's a
dry.
very specific thing, isn't it?
Yeah. No. No, it's not. It's not a very, I mean, because our building code defines mezzanine and it has changed over time of what it means. And that's what our code refers to. Our zoning code refers to it. Our design guidelines refer, you know, like any reference refers it back to that building code. So
How did the
what we
definition?
we need to put this definition here. So it's not now jumping around every 3 years, but like, this is what we think a mezzanine is. And that's where we want to see that feedback of, is there a set square footage? Does it need to be open to below? Are plumbing fixtures allowed up there? You know, what are the different things that you allow in that mezzanine space?
So I understand what you mean by the word mezzanine being stretched to the point where it's clearly not a mezzanine. The first office I ever leased, I was looking for the least expensive office space possible. And I wound up in an office on what the building called the lower mezzanine. It was the polite way of saying the basement. There's nothing mezzanine about this floor. It's just a floor below the first floor. It had no windows. They called it the lower mezzanine because it was easier to rent to somebody than saying, suite 102 in the basement, you know? So I don't know that square footage is really a condition that defines what a mezzanine is. But once you define what a mezzanine is, then perhaps saying in addition to that, we will have certain parameters that are allowable in the city of Redondo Beach on your mezzanine.
Correct.
So, and I'm not sure what plumbing fixtures, what problem plumbing fixtures create, but I've also been in office buildings where they had clearly what was a mezzanine, where you would come into the very high ceiling lobby, head back to where the elevators are in the second half of the lobby area, and above that, and you can clearly see it from the front of the lobby, is another floor that's where it's split. The back of the lobby is actually 2 floors, and yet the second floor is above that. So they called it the mezzanine, and it's a classic example of what a mezzanine is. So again, I don't know that we should have a lot of trouble defining what a mezzanine is, but we perhaps will have lots of debate as to now that we know what a mezzanine is, what kind of mezzanines are we going to allow? So,
Right.
Great. A number of people, especially Gail and Sheila, have talked a lot about permeable surfaces. And as these larger and larger dwelling structures are built, there's less and less yard and less planted yard in the front. I mean, what was the minimum requirement in the front? 40 square feet? It's like nothing, you know? So 40 square feet is nothing. So do we also want to maybe talk to some engineers and some hydrology experts and find out how do we take these smaller amounts of land and make sure that when it rains or water drains across them, that it actually does sink down in and be sent on its way to the water table? You know, do we need to, would we consider having new construction create cisterns underneath their yards so that water is pulled down and returned to the water table? I think we should certainly be thinking about what we can do to maximize our rather severe water shortage. And I know there's a lot of talk at the city and state level about what a big mistake it was to pave the LA River, et cetera. Except when you consider that they paved it because people were being flooded. We need a way to get water into the water table and stop sending all this great water out into the ocean. So something to consider there. So bonuses. I've heard some people mention we just do away with them entirely, but apparently there's a lot of bonuses. I'm not clear on exactly what they all are, but in relation to our situation that we're addressing on these RDGs, what are the most troublesome bonuses? And how much trouble would it be to just say we won't be offering that anymore?
If I may, Director Forbes, would you mind pulling up either the design guidelines or the code so we can look at the R1 FAR bonuses, which I think is what's being talked about. And then I will say in the public comment, we heard a lot of developers or designers talking about what I think is outdoor living space requirement. This commission is not discussing tonight, but is discussing in January. But I think the majority of the discussion is on the floor area ratio bonuses for R1 zone.
This is in the single family residential. This is from the residential design guidelines.
Oh, really? Okay.
And it, you have front porch, 7 feet deep by 10 feet wide, 0.04. Porches must be fully covered. Rear or alley loaded garage, side loaded garage. So even though, so this is actually encouraging what is already encouraged in the residential design guidelines that is so subjective. And then additional second floor side setback, additional second floor rear setback. If you're providing these things, if you provide a Bermuda or Hollywood driveway, which were really, again, those are already encouraged. So here you're now getting this FAR bonus for providing something that basically you should be providing anyway per the residential design guidelines. Front yards with less than 30% coverage. That's where, this is where we're talking about, if it's, if they reduce the impervious that they're putting on their front yard, then they're getting an FAR bonus on their property. So these are the bonuses that are in the residential design guidelines themselves.
So the whole point of bonuses is to encourage good behavior in design or smart design.
At least the bonuses that are listed here. And Sean had mentioned the bonuses. Here, I'm going to stop share. Sean had mentioned the bonuses that are actually in the code itself. Sean, do you have that where you can maybe at least list out what those are?
They are supposed to be one and the same, and I believe they are, but let me check.
Director Forbes, if I may, the FAR only exists for R1, doesn't it? So it may be single family residential, but the only zone that has an FAR.
Well, and the residential design guidelines only applies to R1, but I just wanted to point out it's not in the R1 zoning regulation.
Okay.
I mean, these were listed here. I just wanted to be clear where I was pulling it from.
Okay, no problem. Maybe Commissioner Boswell, if you don't mind, Commissioner Hazeltine, some of those I think are valuable to keep. So that's why my comment was, I think some of those should either be must and you can keep the rest as bonuses. You can reduce the 0.8 down for a maximum. You can do lots of things to still encourage good design without going all the way back to 0.65 and getting nothing of the other benefits that I think are beneficial in the current bonus structure.
Except some of
I
these.
pointed that out because that's what I was looking to find out is, are there bonuses that have just become problematic? Or, and clearly in what I'm hearing now is that there are bonuses that are encouraging proper design and proper function in new development. So
yeah, I think the problematic is
the way to go.
Yeah, I think the problematic is when the developer basically maxes out and goes 4,000 square feet on a 5,000 square foot lot. He's doing all the bonuses and that's fine, but like it just looks massive and it's huge and they do, they do lots of other things to make it, bigger. That's I think where the issue is maximum. Because a 0.65 FAR R1 on a standard 5,000 square foot lot, I think is not ridiculous. So sorry to interrupt your time, Commissioner Boswell.
So I have one more thing. I just want to, in listening to the public comments, and of course we had a number of developers, contractors, subcontractor, people that have bought homes speculatively in the hopes of maximizing their investments. And frankly, I feel for them. Just like anybody who buys an investment and then the next day it tanks. I mean, I bought my home in 1989. By 1991, the real estate recession was such that my house wasn't worth the paper it was. I mean, I could not if I wanted to sell this house, I'd had to take a bath. So I didn't. We just added on and made it the house we would have moved to. But I feel for anybody who makes an investment and is not able to realize it. But frankly, that's life. Sometimes you win, sometimes you don't. And I don't think our role is to make life and profit more wonderful for developers or speculative home buyers of any kind. Rather, our focus really needs to be on what's in best interest to the residents, what's in the best interest to the neighborhoods and communities that make up the city. It's not that we can't throw a bone to developers to encourage proper design, but I'm a little disturbed that some people have commented that once they can't keep building something bigger, that terrible things are going to happen in Redondo Beach, and that's just not true. Big is frequently ugly. Frankly, so when somebody says, you change this stuff and developers won't come in and buy these crappy little houses and turn them into these beautiful McMansions, which is debatable, that's just incorrect. That's somebody who's thinking about their own the viability of their own investment, not the community and not the future of Redondo Beach. Frequently we see in especially in some other communities where size has become ridiculous, where you see entire streets that have created canyons out of those streets. And I know of a particular instance in Hermosa Beach where I found myself completely disoriented when I drove down one street trying to take a shortcut to get around traffic. I used to live in Hermosa Beach, and I was lost because I'm in this shaded canyon that used to just be a street because of the way the homes have come right up to as close to the street as they can, and then straight up. So, what is the right size for Redondo Beach? I don't know, but we don't want, or at least I would hope we don't want this mansionization to replace what we have now, except maybe in District 4. But right sizing for our community, given the properly designed, aesthetically designed, we can create beautiful homes that aren't huge. You have good architectural design. You have a smart home that focuses on airflow and interior space and livable outdoor space. You can't tell me that home isn't going to sell for a lot more than it costs to build and be a wonderful return on investment for a developer. The easy way to go is just make something huge and sell it to whoever's willing to pay for that kind of square footage, and then walk away and do the same thing again somewhere else. Like I said, I feel for people that aren't able to get the return on their investment, but that's not our problem. That's their problem for making a bad investment, perhaps. So I would like to see really nice new homes built in Redondo Beach when there is a need to build another home. And I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Commissioner Godek, Mr. Armstrong has returned. Would you like, I know you haven't had a chance to speak yet, but I want to just check with you. Would you like to speak and ask your questions and get it out, or would you like to hear from Mr. Armstrong?
I'd like to hear from Mr. Armstrong. Do we need to do a motion and a roll call? Yeah, so I'll need to entertain a motion to give Mr. Armstrong however many minutes the motioner chooses, and then a second, and then we'll need to vote on it.
Well, I could revive my motion. This is Commissioner Barrett to provide Mr. Armstrong 3 minutes additional time.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay, there's a motion and a second to give Mr. Armstrong 3 minutes of additional speaking time. Roll call vote, if you would, please.
Yes. Commissioner Boswell?
Yes.
Commissioner Hazelton?
Yes.
Commissioner Godek?
Yes.
Commissioner Gaddis?
Yes.
Commissioner Barrett?
Yes.
Commissioner Lamb?
Yes.
And Secretary Hensley?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, John, go ahead. You have 3 more minutes.
Hi, guys. Sorry, got stuck in Microsoft hell. I thought you guys had some questions for me, and I just wanted to come back and answer any questions that you might have. I didn't. The only thing I was really going to add was, we always have to remember that decreasing the size of a building costs money. It costs in school fees. It costs in building department fees. As far as the developers go, they're going to pay less for the lot, so they'll build a smaller house. So it's really not it. It's whether or not you can achieve what you want to achieve by not decreasing the square footage. And there's always, consequences to that, financial consequences. But as far as the mezzanine aspect goes, I can give you a little history real quick. For years, the building code said a mezzanine had to be open on one side to the floor below and no more than 1/3 the square footage of the floor it was above. And then all of a sudden they came up with the change that it could be enclosed, which didn't seem like a mezzanine anymore to me, but that's what it was. I still don't understand why there's an issue at all about mezzanines, other than somebody complaining that it's a third story because they don't understand if it doesn't change the exterior look of the building, it shouldn't matter what it is, whether it's a mezzanine or a 20-foot high ceiling. That shouldn't make any difference. That's a private property right for people within a building. And whether it has a sink up there, a lot of people use them as offices, so it's nice to have a bathroom and a sink, or just as a guest room. I understand from the one picture that Lisa put up that could be butt ugly with this thing sticking out the back, but that can be solved through the review concept, so you don't end up with an ugly building, whether it has a mezzanine or not. Also, a quick thing I'd like to mention, I'm 100% in favor of putting water back in the ground. I've done it in my own house. I did it at a friend's house. I've come up with a system that can do it using vertical drill holes to where you don't have to have large leach fields that are subject to roots. And it's also my understanding that the state of California requires it. However, the city of Redondo only requires it in the west of PCH. I think it's foolish. Most of our soil, other than some areas in North Redondo, is very good for taking water. And I think a comprehensive way of doing that would not be a bad idea at all. You're going to hear talk of, well, what happens if we get the 100-year or 50-year storm, 1,000-year, whatever it is. I've also designed a system where you can have a sump pump backup, but that operates at about 5% of the time. So 95% of the water can go in the ground and 5% can be pumped, because a sump pump that doesn't get used doesn't work. They freeze.
And that was actually the 3 minutes.
Okay. That's, if anybody has any questions, that was really the reason I came back.
Thank you, Mr. Armstrong. Yeah, there may be questions. There's lots of discussion tonight. So, you're welcome to stay. And if any commissioner has questions for any of the participants who are joining us.
It's my pleasure. I've got a 96-year-old mother I've got to watch out for. That's why I left so fast.
No problem.
Take care. Good luck, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay, Commissioner Godek, thank you for allowing the public speaker.
Yes, sure, of course. Rooftops. I'm a big fan of rooftops. We don't have a lot of them around here, and I feel like the rooftops we have are some of the most underutilized real estate that we've got going in Redondo Beach, but I also know that they can be a little bit controversial because they can generate noise, and it's hard to design them so that you're not getting baked by the sun or pounded by the wind. But I'm wondering if this is also an appropriate forum to discuss green living roofs and roofs for solar panels and things like that, or is this strictly aesthetics?
I think those are very appropriate topics, Commissioner Godek.
Well, I would love to see that discussion as part of this then. Please. And thank you for the great presentation. That was it.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Commissioner. Go to Commissioner Hazeltine.
Yeah. I have the same question that what is the problem with mezzanines? Why? I guess that would be Brandy. Why don't?
I can give one.
I'm not understanding the issue.
Yeah, actually, it was in your presentation. Can I see in the presentation, not the hand drawing of the mezzanine, but you actually had a picture of an R1A house?
The one just in the top in the just like an addition to the top of the roof, it looked like.
Yeah, basically, it's like an appendage sticking out there at the top. And no other house
I'm sorry, Chair Hensley.
I know what you're talking about on that one.
Yeah,
but the others that were in the design, if we have a roof height of 30 feet, right? And you have a first floor and a second floor, why is there an issue if something's just put in the middle there? Yeah, like that middle one there. What I can see that.
Yeah, I think if you look at the middle, The middle section, I think it's the most, this is my personal opinion, I think it's the most desirable option, but I think it adds to the height and the boxiness because that's the only way you get the space for it. Is you have to do a kind of flat roof. You have to make it all max out to 30 feet. I think, whatever they try to do in that middle picture there to make it less boxy is not attractive. But, if you're going to allow mezzanines, I think in R1 they work, but R2s, R3s, and R1As are less desirable.
Does the mezzanine, I'm not a designer, but does the mezzanine cause that to be boxy, or is it the fact that we've got in the middle here, we've got this, picture on the left, which has this gray structure, and then on the right, down the side, we've got quite a lot of structure, walls. I'm not sure how the mezzanine is making that a mess.
What we observed, if I may add, Commissioner Hazeltine, is a lot of the newer projects that were taking advantage of the mezzanine, and they show in these photos, are flat roofs. Okay. The flat roofs start pushing up to the current height maximum.
Yeah. And that happened because of the mezzanine? I'm so confused on what these things are. That's causing that to be a rectangle. That's what causes that to happen?
Well, there's kind of two different things. One is, is the question of the maximum height. And in some cases, people are applying the mezzanine, and which is, for all intents and purposes, looks like a third floor. So I think it's a combination of the sense that it's 3 floors, but I think the overall form of it is that it's maxing out the height with a flat roof. I think you can see they are very boxy because they're flat roofed, and they're hitting the maximums on most of the sides.
Okay.
It's a combination of that extra mezzanine, or what's perceived as a third floor, and the contemporary flat roof form, and how much projects are pushing out to the maximum.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much for that. Then does anybody know why so many of the people speaking were talking about balconies? Who mentioned,
Yeah, Director Forbes, are they talking about the outdoor living space? Did they get wind of that?
Nobody said the words outdoor living space, but I
think it was, they said OLS or they said another O word.
People said open usable space, and they kept referencing balcony. And if you get rid of the bonuses, you're doubling the balcony. So to me, that's in line with the outdoor living space. So I don't want to speak for the speakers. They used the language that they did. Obviously seem to have the same language. So we're communicating with each other on that, or somebody was sharing that language.
Because I get confused. I kind of like balconies. Is there a problem with balconies? I'm not sure.
That's what I gleaned from that, but I don't know that that's the situation. And if that's what they meant by open usable space was supposed to be outdoor living space. But when they're saying if you take away the bonuses, it will double your balcony size.
Right.
That's the concept of the outdoor living space that's on for next month's agenda.
Okay. So back to the floor area ratio. I honestly, in jest, said get rid of them. But some of these things will just go away automatically when we put shalls in. So we shall have a permeable driveway. They literally make bricks that the water goes right through. They're used in other cities. We should have them here. Sidewalks, the same thing. They're permeable bricks, right? Why don't we require that? In researching this, what was so interesting is that all the way from the federal government down, it's cheaper in the long run for the city to have these issues as part of our plan. And So I think a lot of these, you're right, they like a porch with a minimum width of 10 and 7 feet deep. I mean, that's nice. That gets people out in the front yard. That's really a nice thing. So I'm not really literally saying get rid of all of them. But the 0.65 for the ratio, that came up for a reason. You know, there was a reason that number was put in there. And then all of a sudden, well, no, we'll go ahead with these bonuses. Well, now we literally have just these huge, massive houses built out because of the bonuses. Because the 0.65, it's very confusing that there's nowhere near that in a lot of these homes. And I know that we talk about, I totally agree with Commissioner Boswell, because Santa Monica just lowered, I do a lot of driving. I listen to this on the radio. They just lowered their allowable square footage on the lot. So, they went through it. And I know it's not comfortable for the builders, but for the people that live here and whose community it is, it's important to have that is private open space. So if I build out, or we build out from, lot line to lot line with the setbacks included, the neighbor next door now has to look at all of that. And that is open space, private open space that we've now filled. So that is my last comment. But I totally agree with Commissioner Boswell in the way that he explained the, investments. And that's all.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Thank you, everyone, for the good discussion. As you can tell, it's taken quite a while, so I'm going to use this time. There's no more hands up for the public, so I'll give my feedback then. There's quite a bit, because again, I've been on the commission for a couple of years. I've seen how developers have interpreted our residential design guidelines and the monstrosities that come forth that are not all what is intended. So, okay, kind of citywide, I think. So I already mentioned my previous feedback, but I think the max height of 30 feet, builders are allowed to have a parapet, I think is the word for it, above the 30 feet. I think you're allowed 4 feet above the maximum height. Is that right? If someone can help me with that?
That's
like enclosing air conditioners or
yes,
whatever.
It has to shield mechanical equipment on the roof.
Okay, I think a lot of people, not a lot, but quite a few use that, and it really makes you a 34-foot tall building. So my personal opinion is I would like to see the 30-foot include the parapet if they need to use one. Otherwise, have a 30-foot maximum. Again, I mentioned the avenues. Front garage is a no. That you shall have a side or alley loaded garage for the avenues, both east and west of PCH. For the R1A, R2, and R3, I really think we need an FAR. Currently, there is no floor area ratio in those, and that's how you get these 2,500 square foot houses on a 2,500 square foot lot, which is a floor area ratio of 1, which is monstrosity. So I think we need an FAR in those zones. R1A, I think the mezzanine doesn't fit in the R1A neighborhood. Even if you were to put it internal, it just makes it too boxy and it doesn't fit with any of the other houses in the neighborhood. There are no mezzanines that exist. And then also there's a few in the hillier areas of the Golden Hills where R1A houses have basements. I'm going to call them basements. And really they just make a third story or a third level. So I think in the R1A neighborhood, basements where they try to get away with it, are not in alignment with the rest of what's in the neighborhood. Suppose you had a lot of comments. Last one is in R1A neighborhoods, flat roofs. I think, I don't know what to do with it, but like there needs to be a penalty or whatever FAR comes up with is for pitched roofs. But for flat roofs, if they really want that design, then the FAR has to decrease, because in the neighborhood, flat roofs exist in the R1A, but they're all much smaller. There is no 2,000, 2,200 square foot flat roof house, except for these new construction, modern monstrosities that are being built. Okay, the last one is some of the newer designs that we looked at on the previous slide with the mezzanine. They look boxy. They're just, they try to undulate and change, things to make it look less slab-like and box-like, but I don't think they do a fantastic job. So I don't know how we can quantify boxy, like volume or total flat slab area. I don't know. I have no idea how to quantify that. I know we need an objective standard. But if we could think of some way to objectify boxy, because it's something we see a lot in a lot of zones, in a lot of developments, and I'd be interested to see if we can quantify that to eliminate the boxy designs that don't match with what's already built in the neighborhood. So. Okay, I have a lot of information as well, a lot of thoughts I have gathered up. And again, those are my personal thoughts. If other commissioners disagree or different thoughts or whatever, then this is our time to talk about it. And if I need to repeat any of that, I know I may have went through that quickly, but that okay?
Oh, it's good.
Those are my thoughts. Okay. Okay, now we have hands up. Commissioner Hazeltine?
Yes, I agree with everything you said. I do have a question. If this basement is below ground, because I know that that's an issue kind of in my neighborhood a little bit, and I hear people talking about it. What is the issue with that? If you have I'm really literally just going to throw round numbers out. You have a 3,000 square foot home and you have 1,000 square feet below ground, but it's literally like below ground. And it's really a true basement. Maybe they have a ping pong table down there, their washroom. What difference does it make visually or me as a neighbor? And that is a legitimate question.
Yeah, no problem. So my comment was focused to just the R1A neighborhood. So just the tall and skinny houses. And
is the basement, Commissioner Boswell, can you see the basement? Is that what's offensive or?
Yeah, maybe it's easier to look at a picture. Sean, would you mind? Could you help me?
Yeah, what is it? That slanted where you're building into the hillside, that one?
Well, yeah, but what if you are on a flat lot? Okay, you're on a flat lot and you want to go down subterranean into a basement. Is that what you're talking about, Commissioner Boswell, or?
These are my comments, right?
Well, I want to learn about, I'm really honestly just asking because I'm trying to learn.
Okay.
Did I make a comment about basements?
Yeah. Why don't we like basements?
I don't think did I mention basements?
Oh, not you. I am so sorry, Commissioner Hinton.
But I will tell you, I like basements.
Yeah, tell me.
I just didn't think that it was a smart design for Southern California with our earthquakes and houses sliding off of and leaving a basement like a open swimming pool.
Okay.
But built properly and completely underground, why not?
Yeah.
I mean, I have thought many times that the solution to my garage, my garage driveway comes off Inglewood. It's too short to park a car in.
Right.
The garage is that close to the street. And there's no median between the sidewalk and the street. It's street, sidewalk, driveway, house.
Right.
So and the ramp, I mean the grade is such that I have to enter my garage from the south, because if I enter from the north, I'll scrape the front end. Mm-hmm. And I've thought that the solution to this is tear down the garage and make a straight driveway and now have a garage that sits lower and maybe have a deck on top. I don't know. I've never gone past the thought of oh my God, what would that cost? And then I stopped thinking about it. But I'm sure there are all kinds of applications for something below or partially below ground that doesn't contribute to boxiness, massiveness, or force you to exceed a 30-foot height limit.
Yeah, I think some cities are doing the underground stuff. And it's interesting because that way you get, and really, I have no opinion on this, so I'm just throwing these ideas out. you get that 4,000 square foot home, but you only see 2,500 of it or whatever, you know what I'm saying? And then the rest is down there. They get their theater or whatever else they want. So Brandy, do you know anything about why we don't have more of that now? Is it just the expense or it's not allowed?
Sean, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it is allowed. See, one of the issues that comes up though is when you put the, let's say garage under grade,
right?
Rarely, because of the steepness that would be required to access, you're really going to be able to put it completely underground. So you're going to be left, and our basement definition allows the basement to be, let's say 4 feet above grade.
Okay.
So then you're starting now your first floor 4 feet above grade, and then you're pretty much guaranteeing you're going to go to 30-foot max.
I see.
And it's, and maybe something that can, there's trade-offs for all this. If you do a basement, you get that extra square feet, and, maybe a mezzanine standard is looked at as something that's not permitted or something to that effect. I don't know, just there can be balancing of these different building elements that could be considered.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that cost of removing the soil, building that, building the foundation into the basement, into the basement walls, and as Commissioner Boswell mentioned, having to, really configure in the seismic portion of it, and then very to Sean's point is that going to be better or the mezzanine?
Right. Okay. And I did want to say back to the question of conformity. I'm not so sure that we're talking about all of a sudden looking like tract homes. I just don't think, I think the quaintness of our city is that we do look so different because, my house, someone may not like. I may not like my neighbor's house the way it looks, but they like it, So that's kind of like your style, what you like. So is that considered conformity, or conformity is just bring your second floor in 5 feet, do this kind of roof, or Commissioner Boswell, the conformity issue?
Yeah, how do you get conformity in neighborhoods that don't have anything close to conformity? And then how much do you inflict that on neighborhoods that are basically conformed but not cookie cutter? If you take my neighborhood, which would be from 182nd Street all the way down to 190th, or the street north of 190th, and then from Inglewood to the eastern border of the city. When those homes were built, hundreds of homes, every single one of them was exactly the same. The garage might be a little different place, like if you're along Inglewood, your garage is on the side, but most of them, garage is in the back, they drive down the side of the house. In the 67, 68 years since those homes were built, most of them are no longer 960 square feet. They're like mine, 1550. Or they're like some of the ones further south from me, they're easily 3,000 square feet. So this is a very homogeneous neighborhood in comparison to some of the other places, but it's and it's nice that it is. And you'll find that the homeowners have, instead of refinancing and taking that money to tear down their house and build something bigger, they've made very nice homes. They've gone with the double pane windows, and nice landscaping. You drive down some of these residential streets in that neighborhood, and you'd be surprised how nice these homes look. And now we're all in $1 million plus homes.
Right.
I would have, my home in 1991 to 1995 wasn't worth what I owed on it mortgage wise, but now it's worth 4 times what I paid for it.
Right.
That's a nice investment if I ever wanted to sell.
Right.
But it's,
Should we
it's a need that's more urgent in some parts of town than others.
Right.
When I was first living here, there was actually a moratorium in that whole area where you could not tear down a original home and build something that was two floors.
Wow.
That was in place for like 3 years, if I recall, and then it expired, and the city council had changed, and there was no longer a will to maintain continuity. And since then, all the homes built since then that started with a scraped lot have been McMansions. It's that a lot of them are that phony Tuscan style that you see all over North Redondo or all over District 3. Yeah, they're not as bad as the tall and thins, I guess. When I lived in Hermosa Beach, I lived in a house that was on a subdivided lot where the home behind me was the original home, and my home was on what used to be their front yard. It was a cube. I could reach out my back window and touch the wall behind me that separated the two homes.
Yeah. That's
the guy the previous owner told me when this was all the rage, where all the homeowners in Hermosa down in that area were subdividing their lots and building another home in the front, all of a sudden the city council said, "Hey, this is going to destroy the community flavor that we have. The density is going to be untenable," and they put a stop to it. And if you were to drive up the street I lived on was Longfellow. If you drive up Longfellow from Manhattan Avenue, you will see occasionally one house sitting way back.
Yeah.
That's the guy who was asleep at the wheel. Didn't subdivide in time. But it's a nice neighborhood. It's just boxy. Even though it wasn't a big house, it was literally a cube, a 2-story cube. Not very attractive at all. But anyway.
Commissioner Boswell, are we, as far as conformity, if somebody was to stick an ultra-modern house of 1,500 square feet in your neighborhood, we're not really actually talking about conforming that. Someone should be able to stick an ultra-modern house in your neighborhood if they want it. I'm asking.
Conformity is. That doesn't conform. It isn't just size. If you were to say, I'm going to build, like you have down in, where is it, Seal Beach, that water tower house.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with that place, the water tower house?
Yeah.
My neighbor were to say, guess what? I'm scraping the lot and I'm building a water tower house. That would not be a continuity with the rest of the neighborhood.
Okay, just letting these guys know what we were thinking.
I'm going to build an Alpine A-frame next to you. I would go crazy. That does not conform.
Okay.
So yeah, it's not just size. It's the aesthetics of the architectural presentation.
Okay.
If I may, Commissioner Boswell, the neighborhood that you live in, I think on the map is called El Nido. What was the name of it again?
El Nido.
El Nido. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that clarification, because that wasn't that map that we had in the presentation, but it helps.
So
it helps perspective-wise for the consultants.
More people are calling it Franklin Park nowadays.
Okay. So on the map. Okay. So my question is, what makes it a modern not fit? Is it the fact that a modern house would have a flat roof and all the houses in that neighborhood have pitched roofs? Or and I'm going with the older houses, not what's been built in the last 20 years. Is it that they had either rear or side load garages and no front facing garages in the original?
It's still one thing.
Okay, well, is it a maximum size? I mean, you have to pick out what makes a modern house not fit.
Okay, any house that's built today is modern, because that's the definition of modern. It's today. Now, if you're talking about modern as an architectural design philosophy, what is that exactly?
Right.
If somebody were to say, I'm going to design and build something really slick and modern and spaceship-like, does that fit in this neighborhood? No. It's like, years and years ago during the big fights on obscenity and pornography, there was that judge that I think is famous now. He says, I don't know what pornography is, but I know it when I see it. It's the same thing. I'll know it when I see it. If somebody pulls out a set of blueprints and a rendering and shows it to me, I'm going to say, that's boxy. That's nothing like anything else in the neighborhood. Can you please redesign that so that it fits better with the neighborhood? What we don't want is somebody to come in and do something such that no one else on the street will be able to ever sell their home.
Yeah, so everything you just said is the subjective design guideline. So we need an objective design guideline. And what you're asking for is to quantify neighborhood by neighborhood what is and what is not objectionable. And that's a massive undertaking.
Well, and I think that we're going to, that is where we're going to be getting a lot of that feedback in the survey and, and what we're going to be asking the community. We, have looked at those different areas as well. And so we're going to, we'll work, Lisa's expertise is architecture. So really having that, having that eye for some of those components of, what even the historically, like, what happened when these were built? How are they all built that same size, that same, so what are some of the things and features in those neighborhoods that that we want to protect? And it's not going to be that everything's going to be exactly the same or cookie cutter, but it's going to be, it is going to be a challenge because each neighborhood has something interesting.
Well, I think a lot of neighborhoods in Redondo Beach started off cookie cutter because that's the way they used to build. We just bought a whole bunch of land and we subdivided it. And now we're going to build. We're going to minimize our expenses by only having one design with a few variations. I mean, even the housing tract that I grew up in from age 10 to 18 basically had 5 floor plans that they rotated through. So by the early 60s, they were at least getting a little smarter about how they did that. But in 1954, they went, let's just crank out as many houses as we can to keep up with demand. And since then, people have customized their homes, and no two are alike anymore, except the ones that never changed. And that's cool. It's not what we would call completely conforming, but it maintains a certain flavor in this entire very large neighborhood. A certain flavor has been maintained for 67 years, 68 years. I don't know why we can't keep doing that. So it all starts out cookie cutter, but it doesn't last. Everything becomes unique to a certain degree over time as different owners have put their personal stamp on it.
Okay, Commissioner Barrett, you had your hand raised.
I did. Thank you, Commissioner Hensley. I had a question, if I could go back to Ms. Padilla, Lisa. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you said that you would expect to have a first draft of the RDG in spring of 2022. Is that right?
Yeah, I think with the goal, we're hoping we can have something to share, say, in the May timeframe.
And with a final draft to be completed and submitted by June 30th, 2022, is that correct?
Well, the June is the grant deadline. Is that right, Brandy?
The June was the contract deadline. So the city council typically will they'll set a time frame for a project, and that's what we were looking at. Time frame. I mean, technically, it needs to be adopted by December of 2022. So I would think that we'd want to have the draft to the city council at some point in June. And then, but we're gonna work on it, see what we still haven't heard from the community yet to see what we're gonna, how we're gonna need to really work on this.
Okay. So it'd be a draft of the RDG in May 2022. And then that same draft submitted to City Council in June 2022?
No, we would have the draft going to the three different types of meetings that like what we're having now.
Mm-hmm.
And then the feedback that we get at that point would then be incorporated so that it can go to the City Council.
Go to the City Council in time for their meeting in June 2022?
In June 20. I can't say when it'll get submitted. Right now, I can tell you most of the meetings in June are going to be taken up with budget. So chances are it's not going to be considered by City Council at a June council meeting because they'll be working through the budget. So we'll get it to the City Council. It'll likely end up being on a July meeting. Chances are, just because I even if we got it to the City Council, it would end up getting carried to July.
And then with the contract ending in June with Lisa in June of 2022, who would then be the
we would extend, if we saw that coming, we would extend the contract.
Okay.
City Council would extend the contract.
And is that?
That's not an unusual process. We have that happen sometimes. I mentioned that before. We had that with the vehicle miles traveled. We had that with other projects where we've had extensions of the contract to get it through to completion.
And based on what you're anticipating now with the City Council being busy in June and likely not able to review this until the July meeting.
We are working to the deadline that we have. We'll go from there. Lisa said she's working towards May. If they get it done in April, it's coming to you in April. So I can't foresee the future. And we don't know what the community's input's going to be in the community meeting and in the survey.
And that's part of the reason why I'm asking is because of the robust discussion we're having tonight amongst the commissioners and the public. So my question is, if we get this draft revised RDG in May 2022, we meaning the commissioners, and that would be an opportunity also for us as commissioners to see the feedback that's been received at those three meetings. We're undoubtedly, I think, going to have comments and input and recommendations on likely changes for consideration to that draft. Is Lisa going to have enough time to incorporate all of that, that cascade of information and redraft the RDGs and update them accordingly to reflect that in time for even a July meeting? I mean, does that, Lisa, sound too aggressive a schedule for you?
It may be. What's hard is not knowing what comments we're going to hear and what the responses to the draft.
Do you think 30 days would be enough time to incorporate what you anticipate to hear in these three meetings upon submission of your draft in or about May of 2022?
It could be tight. I mean, we're going to endeavor. This is one of the challenges of schedules that involve outreach, because we don't yet know what, kind of to the level. I mean, I'm sure it will be, hopefully we're going to get a lot of people commenting, but it's hard to know if they're going to be divergent comments and how many we'll be responding to, and if the document is being, we're being asked to restructure it or.
Mm-hmm.
But may I ask Commissioner Barron, is your primary concern that there be enough time for the community to provide the input? Or is it mainly our performance?
The enough time for you to incorporate the input into the RDG. So you'll present a draft RDG per your scope of work in your consulting agreement. You'll receive feedback, 3 meetings of feedback, and my understanding is the Planning Commission will get another look at this and be able to provide their further feedback once they see the actual work product. Will you have enough time to incorporate all of that with just, the staff you currently have within what may be a 30-day window? Is that realistic? Is that too aggressive? Will you be able to incorporate that in, including what may have to be potentially substantial changes to reflect the feedback you receive?
Well, again, I don't know, because we won't know if they are substantive and what we have. I mean, that's the best way I can respond to your question. We will certainly endeavor to do it to meet the city's schedule. But if the primary objective, which I would hope it is that the product that comes back is responsive and appropriate to present to City Council, and it may need more time, I think we'd have to cross that bridge together and with staff in terms of what steps are best and is more time needed, and what are the implications of that.
Yeah. And if more time is needed and the current service agreement runs out in June and Brandy's addressed it, are you and your team available to continue to work on this past June 30th, 2022, or do you have other engagements, or maybe have other engagements that would prevent you from doing that and would require the city to engage another consultant?
No, absolutely. I mean, we would be available to complete the task if the schedule had to be extended.
Yeah. Okay. And all of this goes to sort of the touchstone here, which is this is a once in every 2-decade process. Everybody wants it done right to the extent we can, and not to rush it or to unfairly cram you into a situation where you can't do your best work product that would incorporate all the feedback you're going to receive at the 3 meeting, presumably from the Planning Commission and the City Council within that window. So you certainly aren't going to do a rush job. No one would want that. It's too important. And so that's, we just want to be, I want to be sensitive to that and make sure we're not, setting an unrealistic expectation because of the importance of incorporating further feedback.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Commissioner.
Certainly. And before I go, and pardon the interruption, just very quickly, if I may, Director Forbes, just so I'm clear, and you addressed it a little bit earlier, will we at the Planning Commission have an opportunity to review that draft that we may receive in spring, or we will receive in spring 2022? Will we have an opportunity to review that draft and provide more fulsome input on it? And tonight it's more of an introduction of this process, and it's been helpful. But will we have another opportunity to look at that draft and provide more detailed and fulsome input and recommendations?
Yeah, that's the scope, is for the meeting with the Planning Commission. We'll make sure that you have the draft well in advance of the meeting. You're not going to get it just in an agenda packet a couple of days in advance.
Mm-hmm.
Similar to us, distributing the residential design guidelines well in advance of this meeting. So you'll have that chance to look at that draft. You'll have an idea of where things came from. We can certainly share the survey results with you in advance of that meeting as well, so you can see where that community feedback landed.
Okay, yeah, I think that would be great. Thank you.
And Commissioner Barrett, was there anything else?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Director Forbes, if commissioners have more comments or they think about it a little bit, over the next few weeks or month or whatever, can they email you with the comments and you can provide them?
Yeah, I think that would be valuable to email those to me. And we'll make sure that those get distributed to the consultant and to internally for our staff so that everybody has an idea of what the feedback is.
Okay. So to the commissioners, if you have other detailed comments or other neighborhoods or your particular neighborhood, you see something that is working or isn't working, please make sure those comments get in early and, let's give them as much feedback and we have the experience of seeing projects come through or even in our neighborhoods, what is working or not. So, Commissioner Barron.
I'm sorry for maybe not understanding. Get our comments in early to the extent we can now, but also get them in after we receive a draft of the RDG.
Well, that'll be down the road. I mean,
that'll be
your comments on the residential design guidelines that you have right now, the existing ones, if they're like, hey, you know what? I think with the avenues, we talked about the garages in the alleyway, but we forgot to talk about this. I'd really like to see X. And so if there was something, or I'm really, I don't think that this is important anymore, maybe that doesn't need to be the focus. So whatever it might be that you have as comments on the existing residential design guidelines or things that are not in our design guidelines that you'd like to see in those going forward, those we need to get in sooner rather than later. And then when we have the draft, then that's when, you'll provide your comments at that point.
Provide additional comments at that point.
Correct.
For the draft.
I would imagine we're only going to have a week or two at most with the draft.
Oh, I would say probably more than that.
Oh, really? Okay.
I would hope to, it all depends on when we have the draft and when your next meeting is going to be scheduled. But I would like to have, because an agenda goes out usually a week before the meeting. I'd like for you to have some time, but we'll, maybe it's 2.5 weeks, but I'd really like for us to make sure that you have plenty of opportunity to look at that.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. That was a good discussion. This is a difficult topic. I really appreciate the support from everyone. So thank you to staff. Thank you for the great presentation. And I hope we provided some useful comments and feedback. So, there's no more hands up. Just to confirm one more time, Lena, there's no other e-comments or other public comments we haven't heard from?
No, there is not.
Okay. Okay, so we don't need a motion on this discussion item, right? Thank you.
Thank you. That's all. Thank you so much.
And thank you, commissioners. This was really, really valuable for us. We really appreciate you're very generous with your time and your input and your thoughtfulness. So thank you.
Thank you. Director Forbes, we don't need any sort of motion, or do we need to receive and file? No, right? Okay.
No.
Okay. That was a discussion item. All right. It's now 10:20 p.m. We still have.
If I may, Chair, it is late, and for us to get into another very in-depth conversation, I don't want to just continue to the 27th. And I know this is a lot to ask the commissioners. You have a lot coming up. Because on the 27th, you may have a cannabis ordinance. You're for sure going to have a line. You're going to have a lot going on at that meeting. What I'd like to recommend, if people are still available on the 20th, is that you can do the chairman, but continue the public hearing to date certain on January 20th. And then when you go to adjourn, adjourn to the January 20th.
In January, we'd have two meetings, the 20th and the 27th. Is that correct? Okay.
I know it's a lot, but we have a lot. I mean, there's a lot coming at you.
Sure.
And that includes, your discussion about the outdoor living space, and that's going to be on that agenda. And we really needed to move. We've already carried this agenda item. I don't want to start having that conversation per se at 10:30 at night. And not get through it. So.
Okay, let me check with the other commissioners. So we saw this topic back in October. It got shared with us. We went through a kind of slide deck and what are the options that they're looking for. What are the commissioners' thoughts? Do we want to continue it to January 20th? Does everyone think this is going to take 5 minutes of a public hearing? I don't think so.
And sorry, if I may, we do have one person here to comment on this, so we will need to take the one comment as well.
Yeah, we'll want to continue the public hearing, have it, make sure that people realize it's open, take whatever testimony from tonight and then continue it to the date certain if everybody's okay with that.
Okay, Commissioner Hazeltine, could you have your hand up first?
I could definitely do 2 meetings next month. But if we've all done our homework and we don't have a lot of discussions, we might be able to get this done pretty quickly.
Okay. Commissioner Lamb?
There we go. Yes, I would agree that on the 20th, a first meeting and then a second meeting on the 27th. I would encourage everyone to have their decisions made before the meeting, if possible. Thank you.
Technically, at a hearing, you should reserve judgment until the hearing is closed. You may have inklings before. Okay. We have so it seems like January, I'm ready for tonight and I don't have a lot of discussion, but again, I've had quite a while to look at this accessory structure topic. So other commissioners, January 20th is acceptable. You can just unmute yourself. Let's just have a quick conversation.
I'm good.
You're good with going tonight or you're good with 2 next month? Commissioner Boswell, I didn't understand.
I'm good for the 20th and the 27th to do both.
Okay. Commissioner Geddes, do you have a thought?
For both.
Okay. Commissioner Barrett?
We're talking about moving this item regarding accessory structures and setbacks to the 20th and 27th of January. Is that right?
To the 20th.
20th of January. So let me, as I understand it, Director Forbes, correct me if I'm wrong. So on the 20th, we will have 2 meeting topics. The accessory structures and setbacks that we're continuing tonight, and then the outdoor living space topic from last month those 2 will be on January 20th. Is that correct?
Yeah, we can have those.
Okay. And then January 27th will be an SB9 ordinance.
And possibly the cannabis. Yeah. I think you'll have cannabis too.
Okay. So 2 meetings, 2 topics each meeting. That's what it looks like for January. Is everyone okay with that? That's what I'm hearing.
I'm good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So then we don't have to open this public hearing. Is that correct? To continue?
No, we need to in order to get the hearing is open. Am I right, Lena?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. So the hearing is open. You can take public testimony. So I would just say, we're starting this agenda item and then we can take the public testimony and the continued hearing. And then you would need to make a motion to continue the public hearing to the date certain of January 20th.
Okay. Let's do that then. That's what I've heard. So I'd like to give I'll give the oath then in case the speaker is new. Do we still have a speaker?
Yes, let me, Marissa, are you still there?
I'm here.
Hi. Okay, so real quick, the chair is going to give you an oath take first since it's a public hearing, and then you can speak after that, okay?
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, so I'll just give a quick purview. So what we're talking about is we continue this public hearing for consideration of the amendments to the Redondo Beach Municipal Code, Title 10, Chapter 2, Zoning and Land Use, and Title 10, Chapter 5, Coastal Land Use Plan, pertaining to setbacks for accessory structures in residential zones and standards for building and other projections in all zones and consideration, etc. So that's the topic that we've continued to this meeting. We're going to continue it again, but we're going to take public testimony. And for the Ms. Rivera, there is an oath that I will now give you. So will all those individuals who wish to provide testimony with respect to the public hearing items on this agenda, please take the following oath. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Oath is given. Okay.
Yeah, go ahead, Marissa. You'll have 3 minutes. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for letting me talk. I've been on here with you guys since 6:30, and I've learned a lot. So I live actually in Doug's neighborhood. I live in Franklin Park, and we moved in about 5 years ago. And we moved in, I started saving up money to put air conditioning in my house. And I live in one of the typical houses that Doug mentioned that was tiny, and the people who owned it before me back in the 60s extended the house all the way out. So my house goes to all 4 walls of my property with the exception of the front yard. So unbeknownst to me, other than I needed to have what I was told 5 feet on the other side of my air conditioning unit when I installed it, we went to the planning commission, were denied. And I was basically told I would either have to find a way to put an air conditioner on my roof, which would require structural engineer and mass amounts of money, or I would need to stick it in my front yard, which is the only outdoor living space we have, and put a massive structure around it. And then I was told that this planning meeting was happening. So I'm here to plead my case to all of you. And there are so many other people in my neighborhood in this same situation where we don't have anywhere to put these units, but we live more inland because of how far north and east we are compared to everybody else in Redondo. And the air quality's gotten worse. I have a young son, and I just don't know what else to do. And it was kind of like a stab in the heart after saving up all these years and, even just being able to buy our house here in our dream neighborhood to raise our kids. So I just wanted to come and speak on behalf of myself and my neighbors who weren't able to sit through this meeting, to just please consider, changing the ordinance so that we can put in units. I am a situation where if I put a unit in, I have 4.5 feet on the other side, but not the full 5 that's required right now. So, and it's like, I can't even get an exception. So I don't know if it's changing the ordinance or giving special exceptions to situations like mine, but whatever can be done. I know there's people in neighborhoods that have worse situations than I do. But I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for taking the time to stick with us until 10:30. Ms. Rivera, do you mind if I ask you a question?
Yes, please go ahead.
The air conditioning unit, this is kind of the big square condenser.
Actually, the one
unit?
I'm getting is smaller. We're going all electric. So ours is tall and skinny. My unit will only actually be 25 inches wide from what I'm told and 36 inches tall, I believe.
Okay. Yeah, I think we have a picture from another resident who's in a similar situation. And the unit that you have, is it already installed and you're trying to make it right? Or this is something you want to do in the future?
We were about to do it. We were a week out from starting. And when our company the company we hired went to go pull permits, that's when all of this came up and we were denied. And I met with Marianne in the planning office, who's absolutely amazing. And she was super helpful. And I talked to Christian Horvath, who I talk to all the time because he's helped us do so many wonderful things in our neighborhood over the years. And he's who actually told me about this meeting and to come and talk. So we ended up having to scrap the entire project and we chose to hold off in hopes, waiting for the decision of this committee. And then we'll reschedule next year if the ordinance is passed.
Okay. And just to set your expectation, this committee will make a recommendation or some decision perhaps in January, but I think ultimately it needs to go to the city council for approval, second reading, 30 days later. You might be waiting a little while in the best case. So, okay. Just want to make sure, that's clear. One more question. I hope you don't mind these questions. It really does help us understand better. Was there any thought or consideration given to the mini split air conditioners installed in the wall versus the kind of unit you were looking at?
The reason we opted to do this and I was finally ready to do it was also in conjunction with finally saving up enough money. Our furnace died. So I need to replace the furnace and all the ducting and things like that. And since I need to do everything, that's when they started talking to me about being able to convert the whole house to electric. So it also helps with like emissions and things like that. So we would actually be replacing our furnace and then also installing air and switching to electric.
Okay, understood. Thank you so much. It's really helpful. Okay, we have a couple of commissioners with hands up. Commissioner Boswell, were you first?
I do have just a short question for Marissa. On your condenser box that's only 25 inches wide, it's only sticking out into your setback 25 inches.
Well, no, it has to sit away from the wall 12 inches and then the 25 inches. So then that's why I don't have enough on the other sides of my property line.
Is it a 2-story house?
No, we're a single story. We're on Ralston, right in front of the park.
Oh, okay. Now I was just thinking, is there a way to attach it to the side of the building above firefighter height?
I don't know. Those options weren't even proposed to me. So is that an option? If it's not sitting on the ground, it can be attached to the side of the building?
Good question.
Not if it's in the setback, it's the setback. I mean, it's.
And I should explain, we want to put ours in the back of our house, not on the side. So we have 6 feet from the back wall to the wall of our property line. And that's where we want to put ours. And that's what we mapped it out for. Because I agree with not putting them on the sides of the house, even though if we did the side, it would be the absolute back of the house. So there's plenty. And I'm fortunate that we have a million windows all over the sides of our house. So we have plenty of access. But I understand the reasoning when I talked to Marianne about not putting it on the sides.
Okay. And you said Mr. Ray, you said you brought this topic to the Planning Commission. Was this a variance or an appeal? I don't remember the topic, so it must have been before.
No, I didn't bring the topic. I was told that this was already a topic that you guys were discussing. So it was suggested to me to come and attend the meeting to speak to you all about.
Okay, yeah, this is fantastic feedback. Really helps us make our decisions. That is one of the things we're looking at is air conditioners in setback. Okay, Commissioner Boswell, did you have a further question or comment?
I just was wanting to, actually I do have one other question for Marissa. You said this is 25 inches by 36 inches. What's the other dimension?
I don't have it in front of me.
How much and how much does it weigh? Do you know?
I don't know.
Okay. Apparently it's heavy if you're going to need to do structural work if you put it on your roof.
Well, I was told that to put anything on any roof, you would have to have a structural engineer come out and give the okay or tell us if we needed to do something. And our house, like you know, is built in 1955 and the extension was put on in the 60s. So I can't imagine it's structurally sound to hold an air conditioning unit.
I don't know. Okay.
So I'm just wondering, you were saying the front is the only other place for it. Is there a way to put it in the front and then put like a hedge in front of it?
I would prefer not to have that in my front yard since that's our only yard space. The people that own the house before us built the house all the way back. So there's nothing but front yard.
So basically you'd need a professional engineer to sign off on it that it's safe to put it on the roof.
Correct.
And it might not need structural reinforcement to do that.
Correct.
Yeah, you should probably get a quote.
Well,
I don't know that I want.
Or if I may, they'll also have to screen it if it's on the roof. So it's not just a matter of the unit. Then the zoning code requires mechanical equipment on the roof to also be screened. So you have to also engineer that as well.
That's a lot of money. I mean, listen, just to do the system itself and replace the furnace, upgrade to electric, and do what needs to be done to be to current code, that is $23,000. So then to add in a structural engineer to put it on my roof, build something around it to hide it, like that's insane.
Yeah.
Okay.
Commissioner Barrett, do you have a question or comment?
I did. Thank you, Commissioner Hensley. Ms. Rivera, thank you for staying with us tonight and for bringing this item to our attention. I appreciate it, and I think others here, if not all of them, do as well. Why do you want to put the unit in the back as opposed to on the side of your home?
Just because it was advised to me that we shouldn't put things on the side for firefighter access. I mean, I'm happy to put it on the back corner or in the very back, just so that it's not noticeable. But either way, my sides are the same amount as the back. So I have the same distance on the sides of my house to my property line as I do the back of my house.
And so essentially you don't have a backyard as we would otherwise envision it. It's a small space, and putting it there would not obstruct your kind of outdoor living in your backyard by having the unit there. Is that right?
Correct.
And it sounds like you've been intimately involved in this issue and have spoken to neighbors about it as well. Is that correct?
Yes.
And speaking to your neighbors, did they express any preference as to whether, they were in favor of air conditioners? And if so, did they have a preference between those units being on the side versus the back of the house?
I haven't spoken to them that in depth. My neighbors that have gotten air conditioners didn't even realize that they could push back, well, not push back, but have a conversation around it. So like I have one neighbor that they had to put their air conditioner kind of like right in the middle of their outdoor patio area, which is their outdoor living space, because that was the only place that they were told they were allowed to have it. So people have just made concessions because they want air. But I, unfortunately, the only concession I can make is to literally put it in my front yard for the world to see and to stare at a big, I understand we'd have to put like a grate or whatever around it. And then other neighbors have just not done it because they were like, I guess we can't have it happen.
Thank you. And for the neighbor who put the air conditioning unit in the back patio in their outdoor living space, did you get a sense as to whether their preference would have been to just put it on the side as opposed to in their back patio outdoor living space area?
Yeah, they would have preferred to put it on the other side of their house next to their property wall. Versus they have one of the houses where the driveway goes all the way up and their garage is set back behind them. So it's that space where between the house and the garage, that's kind of their outdoor, and they have a big air conditioning unit because they have a traditional big square compressor unit.
Okay, understood. And that's good. That's good information for us to have. And would you happen to know offhand, Ms. Rivera, the manufacturer and model of the unit that you were contemplating installing at your home?
I do. I actually just pulled it up. So ours is a Samsung air handler. And let's see. Oh, hold on. That's the price. This is a crazy number, so bear with me. It's AC036JXADCH/AA.
Right. And would you happen to know, Ms. Rivera, the decibel level rating, if there is one for that unit? And when I say decibel rating, is you understand?
I do. I actually had sent all of this to Christian. Hold on one second. Okay, so the decibel rating on this unit is 49. And I have all the measurements now. The entire unit measurements are 36 by 48 by 13.
Okay.
And then the 12-inch clearance. So actually, Doug, you know what? It's 25 total because it's 13 and 12, not 25 plus the 12.
Right.
So this unit is only a foot wide, 13 inches wide?
Yeah, it's tall and skinny. It's because it's all electric.
Is there a way to perhaps cut into your exterior wall and embed it into your wall?
I think she's saying
That sounds crazy.
Yeah, I think she's saying it needs a 12-inch gap behind it, probably for airflow. That's my
They told me so that they can get behind it for maintenance and things like that.
Okay.
Put it on a hinge. Have it swing out.
Sure.
And Ms. Rivera,
We're trying.
I was just going to ask, have you done any research or gained any knowledge as to what are the quietest air conditioner units of this type? And if they are less than 49 decibels?
I have not. I left that up to the people that we hired, and they came out and looked at the space and how close the other houses were. And they said to me that this was actually a very low decibel rating.
49 is pretty low. I think in our other packet, we have another resident who has a similar one. I think theirs was like 58 dB noise. So, and I think we have a code for noise, and I forget if it's 45 or 50. It depends on the zoning and things. But, yeah, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, and just very quickly, if I could, Brandy, while we have Ms. Rivera with us, or Mr. Scully, Sean, do you recall offhand what the Redondo Beach Municipal Code provision? I think it's, what is it? 4-24 noise regulations, whether 49 would be within the threshold.
I have to pull it up and double check, but the nighttime noise level is much less than daytime. I believe it's 45 at the property line, but I'd have to research that. And we would have gone through this, I would imagine, when we met Mr. Rivera. But
may I ask a question? So if I put it on the back of my house, the house that's behind me is 20 feet from where it would be to their back wall. So even though it's on the back of my house, 5 feet from my property line, the house behind me is set closer to the street, and they have 20 feet between the wall and them. So then what does that mean?
Right. So I don't think that it's for that rear yard. I mean, the issue is what the regulation says now.
Got it.
Right. So it's not about like now when the commission goes to look at, do they allow side yards or rear yard? Because I agree with you, like that the rear yard setback is going to be, or the setbacks between buildings is going to be much larger between those buildings than it would be the side yard setbacks if everybody is built to their side yard setback. So, in the R1A, I think it's a 3 foot. So you've got 6 feet between buildings. If it's the 10 feet. So, between that house and the next door house,
right?
Setbacks go. So, but whereas a rear yard setback is typically going to have a much larger distance between the two dwelling units. So I think that decibel point, like the decibel issue, is something that we're going to really want to chew on when it comes to the side yard setback. The noise standard, and we do have language in there in the draft regarding noise regulations.
Yeah, and just looking at the code, it appears that 49 decibels would be within the presumed ambient level. But as I think we said at the top, we just wanted to certainly get Ms. Rivera's input, and since she was on the line, so I have no further questions for her or comments on the topic at this time.
Thank you. Are there any other e-comments or speakers, Dina?
No, they're not.
Okay. And at this time, I don't see any hands up, so I'll entertain a motion to continue this public hearing to the January 20th Planning Commission meeting.
Second.
I need a first. That was I'll entertain a motion.
I thought you were the first. Okay. First.
Okay.
I'll second Doug's motion.
Thank you. Okay, we have a motion and a second. I don't see any hands up, so we will take another roll call vote.
And then this is a motion to continue this public hearing to January, correct? Just to clarify.
Correct.
Okay. Commissioner Boswell,
Yes.
Commissioner Hazelton,
Yes.
Commissioner Godek,
Yes.
Commissioner Gaddis,
Yes.
Commissioner Barrett,
Yes.
Commissioner Lamb,
Yes.
and Secretary Hensley.
Yes. Okay, so that continues this item. Ms. Rivera, again, thank you for your time. And for the January 20th meeting, if you want to have any picture or visuals or other information, we're always happy to take it. So, okay. Okay, no items were continued from previous agendas. Items for discussion prior to action. So L1 we already discussed. So L2 is the election of chairperson and secretary for the term through September 2022. So I don't think there's any staff presentation. It's a commission item. So we lost our chair for the planning commission, and each person serves typically from October to September of the following year. So now in December, we're looking to fill the roles until next and till September 2022. So, yeah. Commissioner Godek.
I think you're doing a great job. I would like to make a motion to nominate you for the chair.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Barrett.
Hi. Can I make a competing motion? Or do we first see if there's a second and vote on Commissioner Godek's motion?
Actually, I think chair is the one where you don't need a second. You just need a primary. So you're free to make a motion.
Well, I did just want to move to nominate Commissioner Gaddis as an option as well.
Okay. Motion for Commissioner Gaddis for chair. Any other hands up? Commissioner Boswell.
I'll second that if that's what we're trying to do.
These motions don't need seconds. This is one of the very few times that staff correct me if I'm wrong. Okay.
Well, we want to verify does Commissioner Gaddis accept the nomination?
Yes, I accept it.
Okay. No other motions? Okay, we'll call the vote.
Commissioner Boswell?
Sorry, to clarify, which motion are we voting on?
Oh, so for electing Commissioner Gaddis as chair.
Okay.
Right.
Yes.
Commissioner Hazelton?
Yes.
Commissioner Godek?
No.
Commissioner Gaddis?
Yes.
Commissioner Barrett?
Yes.
Commissioner Lamb?
Yes.
And Secretary Hensley?
No.
Okay, motion passes 5-2. So congratulations, Chair Gaddis.
Chair Gaddis.
Thank you.
And so then,
Do we elect a secretary now?
yes, correct.
Do you need to elect a secretary if Matthew was already?
Oh, that's true. Actually, well, Matthew's the secretary. That's true.
Matthew is the secretary.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
He is the secretary. So I think we're good.
Are there any further items? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Adjourn to the January 20th.
To January
20th.
20th. Yes.
2022.
I second
Right,
that.
2022. Yes. Do I have a second?
Second.
I'll do a roll call. Or
Do I hear any objections to this? Then motion carries. We'll see